The summer of 2025 shattered the fragile calm of global trade. For years, nations had tiptoed around simmering tensions, hoping to avoid another economic standoff. But as the world's economies began to recover from previous shocks, a new storm was brewing, one that would test the resilience of international partnerships and the very foundations of the global marketplace. President Donald Trump launched a sweeping new trade offensive, targeting not just rivals, but also close U.S. allies. In a series of bold moves, he signed executive orders imposing tariffs and restrictions on a wide range of imports, citing national security and economic fairness. The message was clear: America would no longer tolerate what it saw as unfair trade practices, no matter who the partner was. The world watched as a full-blown trade war loomed, pitting the U.S. against the BRICS bloc and its sympathizers. Newsrooms buzzed with urgent updates, and financial markets reacted with volatility. The stakes were higher than ever, as countries scrambled to protect their own interests and brace for the fallout. This isn't just about tariffs, it's about shifting power, alliances, and the future of global influence. Behind closed doors, leaders debated new strategies, weighing the risks of confrontation against the need to defend their economies. Old alliances were tested, and new partnerships began to form in response to the rapidly changing landscape. Japan, long anchored to its U.S. alliance, suddenly found itself threatened by the same protectionist measures as America's adversaries. Japanese officials scrambled to respond, holding emergency meetings and reaching out to other nations for support. The sense of uncertainty was palpable as Japan weighed its options in a world where old certainties no longer applied. The choices made in these weeks would reshape partnerships, economic blocs, and the cost of goods for everyone. Consumers began to notice rising prices on everyday items, while businesses faced tough decisions about supply chains and investments. Economists warned that the ripple effects could last for years, altering the balance of power in ways no one could fully predict. The question: will this aggressive U.S. strategy rebalance trade or accelerate the very changes it fears? As the world held its breath, one thing was certain: the era of predictable global trade was over, and a new, uncertain chapter had begun. To understand the standoff, we need to know the players. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa form a powerful economic coalition challenging Western dominance. Their goal: reduce reliance on the US dollar and create alternative global institutions. Meanwhile, the US and Japan have been deeply intertwined allies for over 70 years, their economies tightly linked. President Trump's tariffs shook this foundation, arguing that multilateral deals let others exploit the U.S. The U.S. now pushes for bilateral deals, using tariffs as leverage. BRICS and Japan, in contrast, defend a multilateral, rules-based system, seeing U.S. actions as protectionist and destabilizing. This clash of vision sets the stage for a prolonged global conflict. In July 2025, the White House sent shockwaves through the global economy by threatening a sweeping new set of tariffs, an aggressive move that instantly captured the world's attention and set off alarms in capitals from Asia to Europe. The announcement was made in a high-profile press conference, with officials emphasizing the seriousness of the administration's intent. The centerpiece of the plan was a dramatic 25% tariff on a vast array of goods imported from Japan, South Korea, and China, with a strict deadline of August 1st for compliance. These three economic powerhouses, long-standing trade partners of the U.S., suddenly found themselves at the center of a brewing trade storm. But the reach of the tariffs didn't stop there. A blanket 10% tariff was also announced for all countries aligned with the BRICS bloc, a move that signaled a new era of economic confrontation and sent ripples through emerging markets. For Brazil, India, and Indonesia, the penalties were even more severe, with tariffs climbing higher than those imposed on other BRICS nations. These countries, already navigating complex relationships with the U.S., now faced the prospect of even greater economic strain. In a stunning twist, even Canada, America's closest neighbor and ally, wasn't spared. A 35% tariff threat loomed over Canadian exports, making it clear that no country, regardless of its alliance or history, was immune from the new U.S. trade policy. The administration justified these sweeping measures as necessary steps to address persistent trade deficits and to push back against the BRICS nations' growing efforts to de-dollarize global commerce. Officials argued that bold action was needed to protect American jobs and maintain the dollar's dominance. In the midst of mounting tension, a temporary pause was granted, a brief window for last-minute diplomacy and frantic negotiations. Behind closed doors, diplomats raced against the clock, hoping to avert a full-blown trade war. Yet the message from Washington was unmistakable: comply with the new terms, or brace for severe economic pain. The stakes had never been higher for businesses and governments worldwide. As news of the tariffs spread, financial markets trembled and world leaders scrambled to formulate responses. Emergency meetings were called and multinational corporations began to assess the potential fallout. The United States had signaled its willingness to disrupt global trade on an unprecedented scale. With the clock ticking toward the August 1st deadline, the world braced for a new chapter in economic history, one defined by uncertainty, confrontation, and the relentless pursuit of national interests. Japan, facing devastating tariffs, acted swiftly and strategically. Rather than confront the US, Tokyo launched intense, behind-the-scenes negotiations. Japan offered targeted concessions, likely increased US agricultural imports, in exchange for continued tariff-free access to the American market. By July 23, a new deal was struck, averting the tariff threat for Japan and the Philippines. Japan preserved its alliance and economy, but the episode exposed the risks of over-reliance on a single partner. Quietly, Japan began considering future diversification. While Japan negotiated, BRICS nations united in defiance. Leaders condemned US tariffs as a threat to global recovery and rallied around multilateralism. Emergency summits followed, with BRICS plotting joint WTO action and accelerating plans for trade in their own currencies. India, once close to Trump, now aligned more closely with BRICS after facing steep tariffs. The bloc's unity grew, with high-level coordination between China, India, and Russia. BRICS strengthened their new development bank and alternative payment systems, signaling a real challenge to US economic leadership. The world was witnessing the rise of a more multipolar order. The 2024 Satsamingaik am Nakwerstaner Fur 45 trade wars redrawing the global power map. US tariffs on allies like Japan and Canada have shaken trust in the Western alliance, pushing countries to diversify partnerships. Meanwhile, BRICS has grown more cohesive, transforming from a loose forum into a formidable geopolitical force. Their push for de-dollarization has gained urgency. For smaller nations, this new rivalry brings both risk and opportunity, instability, but also leverage to secure better deals. The unipolar era of US dominance is fading, replaced by a complex, multipolar world. These trade tensions are both a symptom and an accelerant of this shift. The choices made now are shaping the 21st century geopolitical landscape. Experts warn that the world is facing a period of profound uncertainty with serious long-term consequences that could reshape the global order for years to come. As nations retreat into self-interest and alliances are tested, the very foundation of international cooperation is at risk. Dr. Elena Voronova, a leading voice in international economics, argues that the use of tariffs against traditional allies not only undermines the rules-based system that has governed global trade for decades, but also sets a dangerous precedent. She warns that such actions invite retaliation, erode trust, and could trigger a cycle of escalating trade disputes that would be difficult to reverse. Professor Kenji Tanaka, an expert on Asian geopolitics, observes that Japan's recent negotiation strategy was pragmatic, reflecting a careful balancing act in a rapidly changing environment. However, he cautions that this is a wake-up call for Japan, which will now hedge its bets by diversifying its partnerships and strengthening ties with Southeast Asia, seeking stability and new opportunities in a region that is becoming increasingly important. Professor Tanaka continues, noting that Japan is also deepening its engagement with Europe, forging new agreements and building bridges to ensure it is not left isolated. These efforts reflect a broader trend of countries seeking alternative alliances as old certainties fade. He adds that even the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are becoming more attractive partners for countries looking to diversify their economic and diplomatic relationships. Dr. Arjun Desai, a political economist, notes that mounting US pressure has had an unintended effect. It has unified the BRICS countries, bringing them closer together and overshadowing old disputes that once divided them. This newfound unity is giving rise to a more coordinated approach on the world stage. Dr. Desai adds that this unity is spurring real cooperation on the development of independent financial systems, as BRICS nations work to reduce their reliance on Western-dominated institutions and create alternatives that better serve their interests. Sir Richard Atwood, a senior analyst in global affairs, warns that an open trade conflict between the US and BRICS could paralyze global cooperation on critical issues like climate change, public health, and economic stability, making it harder for the world to respond to shared challenges. Sir Richard Atwood continues, emphasizing that security cooperation could also break down, increasing the risk of regional conflicts and undermining efforts to maintain peace. The world, he cautions, risks entering an era where every nation is forced to fend for itself, prioritizing narrow interests over collective action and making global solutions ever more elusive. In this vacuum of leadership, instability could spread, making the world more volatile and dangerous, with unpredictable consequences for economies, societies, and individuals everywhere. The stakes have never been higher, and the choices made today will shape the future of the international system for generations to come. These trade wars aren't just headlines, they hit home. Tariffs raise the price of everyday goods, from electronics to food, squeezing family budgets. Supply chain disruptions can cause shortages and threaten jobs, as factories reliant on global parts grind to a halt. Exporters face lost sales while importers see costs soar, forcing layoffs and stalling investment. The uncertainty makes it hard for businesses to plan or grow. Politically, rising nationalism and fractured cooperation can limit travel, cultural exchange, and scientific collaboration. The world becomes less open, less stable, and less innovative. In a globalized world, a trade war affects us all. As 2025 ends, the world stands at a crossroads. One path leads back to multilateralism and cooperation, the other to fragmentation and zero-sum rivalry. Japan's negotiation showed diplomacy is still possible. BRICS unity signals a push for a more balanced world. The US holds the power to steer the world toward cooperation or deeper division. The outcome will shape prosperity and security for decades. Our challenge: find a new equilibrium that addresses grievances but preserves the benefits of open global systems. The future is being decided now.